Hello, Diana.
Hello. Hi, Jack.
Hello. Thanks for joining.
Sure. So I don't know how the sound is because I came out of my house and I'm in like this back office and they're like doing some work next door. Can you hear do you hear that like
Not at the moment, no.
okay, good. And then I realized Friday morning we sometimes have someone come in to work on our garden and there may be a leaf blowing incident. So we might have
Okay.
to pause for
Okay. Well, I can always edit any part. If you start swearing as well, I can edit that out, you know.
okay,
If
sounds good.
if you lose your temper any time, any point in the conversation.
I'm sure I will. I probably will. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat.
Sure.
I got in touch because I had Dan Siegel on the show, and that was inspiration overload.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because you worked together at UCLA, no?
Yeah, we have over the years in different ways. Uh-huh. Mhm.
I guess you're all, you know, well, I guess you've worked with everyone. You've been through heck.
I've been around the block. I certainly know a lot of great people. I feel very blessed about that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, your mindfulness CV, it really brought me into the moment reading it.
It's funny. Yeah. Where are you?
I'm in Italy.
Located? Oh, you're in Italy. Oh,
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah. So I get to do that. I started doing this in COVID lockdown
Mhm.
as a way to deal with the depression of being locked in my house. And it's been
Mm.
fantastic. It's been the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow. How
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I looked briefly at it. I see you've been doing it a long time, a lot of people, and you have to write a lot of songs, I guess.
Well, the problem isn't, the problem with like Dan Siegel is not that you have to write one song, it's that you only have to write one song. He was too inspiring, and we had another musician on as well, Will Clapson, and he wrote a great song about was Dan has many of these lines like where attention goes, neural firing flows, and neural connection grows. So he's practically doing the job for us.
There you go. He does like acronyms and rhymes and things like that. Yes. So,
But I didn't get a chance to. So full disclosure here,
mhm.
I I got so inspired, but I wasn't allowed to write the song there because Will came up with the song. So I have an idea for another song about this, what he was talking about, this wheel of awareness, and this he also had this quote from Carlos Santana, a hose through which love flows, which I just thought was
Mhm.
spectacular.
Mm.
So I'm hoping I could take a little bit of that inspiration I already have and
Mhm.
work with you to kind of flesh it out into a full-blown beast.
Okay, there you go. And who says you can't do more than one song for somebody?
Well, we did it. Um, all the other guests would just get so jealous. It's just,
I see. Okay,
you
it's
know,
problematic. All right.
I don't want to have to show favoritism. So the only problem is I'd ask you just not to be too inspiring. Otherwise, I have to get another guest on to talk about your work, and then
Okay, I'll try
it's
not to.
perpetually repeating. It's just be like some nightmare. So let's get back to you then. So
Mm.
you you are you discovered Buddhist meditation in India. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, like in the late 80s. Mhm.
And so you've been on that train ever since.
Correct. Yeah, it was took me by surprise, but, it has been the foundation of my life, basically.
Wow, because I tried some Vipassana meditation, and I guess you did it. You did it. What you experienced was a lot tougher. Actually in India, that being locked in a room with yourself is it makes or breaks.
Well, everybody's been locked in a room with themselves the last 2 years.
Yeah, but we have
So,
all these wonderful devices to keep us.
that's true. Lots of distractions. That's probably the main difference. All you have is your mind. There's a interesting research study, I don't know if you heard about it, but a couple of years ago where they asked people to be alone in a room for 15 minutes, and they had the option of just being alone with their thoughts or, um, being administered some shock, like an electric shock to their body, and a majority of the people chose the electric shock over being alone with their thoughts. So, I think more men than women also chose that.
Well, I can really feel that because I'm doing this daily battle now to try and be mindful, and it's really difficult, isn't it? Because because we have this mind that just needs this constant entertainment. I mean, I was just listening to your podcast, listening to you on other shows, just when I was
Mhm.
watering the garden.
Mhm.
And is that allowed? Am I allowed to listen to podcasts while I'm doing other things?
Of course you are. I mean, mindfulness is a tool, right? And mindfulness can help us in all sorts of ways, but it doesn't mean we have to like live this like mindful life every single second. Like I watch TV, I like Netflix, I like podcasts. I enjoy distraction and I also do a lot of mindfulness too. And they don't cancel each other out or anything.
Okay, so that's good for my listeners so that they can do this. They can listen to this show while they're doing other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just know what you're doing when you're doing it, right? So, no, just be clear. Okay, I'm washing the dishes. I hate washing the dishes, but I love when I listen to a podcast and I wash the dishes, I feel happier, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And another sorry?
Why is that? That if I have a boring, repetitive task, if I have a podcast on, I do it so much better. I concentrate more. I do it for longer. I finish the job. The sorting out the drawer, for example, it's beautifully done. Whereas if I don't have this distraction of this podcast, I want to move on to something else.
Well, typically these are activities that are kind of boring, right?
Mm.
And then so when you're distracting yourself, you keep yourself entertained and you do something that is interesting to you, and then that makes the boring thing less boring. I mean, also another I know I'm thinking about research today, but there was another interesting study about when somebody looked at, like, they were asked to speculate how long and how tired they would get to climb to the top of this mountain, and then or like a hillside or something, but high. And then they were asked, "If you were with a friend doing it, how long do you speculate it would take?" And if they thought they were gonna be with a friend, they reported it would happen faster, they would be less tired. And so it's like there are things that give us enjoyment and pleasure, and we can increase the things we can do it, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not I think people think mindfulness, "Oh, no," and become like this mindful zombie, and life is so boring, I'm just mindful of everything. But that's really a misconception about what mindfulness is.
Wow.
And
So we have to be mindful about the mindfulness.
in a way, yeah,
Ah,
absolutely, absolutely. So mindfulness, I like to define mindfulness as paying attention to our present moment experiences with openness, curiosity, and a willingness to be with that experience. Right now, so if you think about your life, like half the time, in fact, the research says like 50% of the time, we're not in the present moment. We're lost in the past. We're thinking about the future. We're obsessing. We're worrying. We're replaying. We're spacing out, right? All of those things. When we're doing those things, if we're doing that and we're thinking about positive things, we're still happy. But if two-thirds of the time we're not doing that, two-thirds of the time we're thinking about unpleasant things, we're worried about something, or we're thinking about neutral things. And that's when people report unhappiness. So they've also studied this as well. So if you bring your attention to the present moment, particularly in the midst of a negative emotion or in other situations that I'll describe, but people report more happiness. So you can distract yourself while you wash the dishes, but you could also practice mindfulness and see what happens. Like let's say you wash the dishes and you're feeling your hand on the excuse me, on the dish, the feel of the water, the warmth, take a breath. You might feel really connected and happy and at ease. And so mindfulness, the thing about distractions, like distractions are great. Like I said, I like to watch Netflix shows or something, but mindfulness, like, you always have yourself. In the end, all you have is yourself. So what we want is our skills to help us be with ourselves, to handle the difficult emotions. We're not always gonna have an opportunity to distract. Um, and that's what's kind of amazing about mindfulness. So not only does it take us out of these imagined futures and these ruminations and our fears and our worries and all of that and bring us to the present moment, which is oftentimes neutral or sometimes even mildly pleasant or even just it's quite connecting. It also people find that when they practice mindfulness, there's more gratitude and appreciation and feeling of like showing up in their lives. Like, so many of us live on autopilot. And it's like we're checked out. You get in the car, you get out of the car, you have no idea what happened in between. So, how do we have mindfulness practice? It helps us inhabit our lives more fully. So, people report gratitude, appreciation, sense of connection with their families and peers. And, there's all these beautiful, beautiful kind of results that come from doing the practice and practicing it in daily life. And it's one way of being, there's lots of ways of being.
That's great. Yeah, it's easier to do that compassion and that gratitude, isn't it, than feel this pressure to be Eckhart Tolle sitting on a bench in a state of bliss for hours on end.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's very, very rare. His story is amazing and it's super unusual, and most of us, it's these moments of mindfulness. And sometimes they're like really, um, they're moments that happen like spontaneously because of the conditions. So, for instance, a lot of people will go out in nature and they're in someplace beautiful and they'll just feel a sense of ease and connection to themselves and peace and relaxation, all the beautiful things. And there's like a natural mindfulness. And that can happen when we're like in the flow in athletic activity or in the midst of artistic activity or with a dear friend or, that happens, right? So there's that spontaneous kind of mindfulness, but then typically that fades away. So with Eckhart Tolle, it doesn't really fade away. And that's great. That's
Bastard.
why
Yeah.
he's, doing, doing what he's doing. For most of us, it comes and goes. So some of it, as I said, can be spontaneous, but, for others, it can be cultivated. So that's why we do these meditation practices, or one of the reasons, because it gives us the skill set to access mindfulness both during the meditation and throughout the course of our day in ways that can completely enhance life, help us deal with emotional reactivity, with suffering, with pain, and lead to more and more awareness and joy and connection, all these positive states, plus a lot of learning about ourselves. Like that's what I think for me, like when I first started meditating, the thing that was the most interesting to me was how much I was learning about myself. It's like if you want to learn about yourself, I mean, you can like speculate or you can ask other people, but you could actually like kind of dive into yourself. Like, what is going on inside me? Oh, wow, I've always been a person that needed praise, and what does that mean? And and what if I mindfully hold the grief connected to that, and what happens there? I mean, there's so much to explore. Sort of going off on a tangent here, but this is mindfulness has the power to help us deeply dive into ourselves for more self-awareness, for more compassion, for more wisdom. Like I feel that starting mindfulness when I was 22 or something has built a foundation of wisdom and compassion for me that now, many, many years later is my life, is part of my life. So
Yeah. It's like you watch the watcher, you say, you're the audience and the show. It's like to be both those in success for any in any field, isn't it? It's the foundation, as you said.
well, this ability, like there's some basic skills that mindfulness can teach us that will help us no matter what we do. And one of those skills is one is just learning to relax, right? I mean, people don't know how, people are on like go all the time and
Yeah.
then constantly distracting. And I think some people call it continuous partial attention, right? It's just like continually distracted in different ways. So mindfulness can teach us how to pause, how to go inside, especially for those of us who haven't learned that skill and don't give ourselves that. So it has that, and then it has this level of teaching us how to work with emotions when things are hard, when we're anxious, when we're depressed. But I think one of the key things, and this is sort of where you were pointing to, is gives us like a separation between our our being caught in our thoughts and emotions, and it gives us more space, right? So we typically refer to this as disidentification. Identification is when you're in your thoughts, like I'm upset. I'm really mad at at my kid for what they did, or whoever it is, right? You're in it. You really believe it. You're caught. Whereas disidentification might has this sense of spaciousness, like, oh wow, I noticed there's a lot of anger in me. I feel it in my belly. It's really intense.
Mm.
Wow, there's a lot of anger here. That's very different than that stupid jerk. Why'd they do that? Right? That's being identified. So it's moving from being my emotion or my thought that I'm caught in to the emotion that's moving through me. And that's kind of what you were pointing to when you're saying like a witnessing quality, right? Where we can, it's not a, it's absolutely 100% not a dissociation, right? That dissociation is related to trauma, is related to being, like can be experienced in lots of ways, like floating above yourself or feeling disconnected from the world, or that's not what I'm talking about. This disidentification gives you freedom because you realize that thoughts and emotions and mental states and everything, my physical sensation, everything, it's coming and going, right? You learned that when you did these Vipassana retreats, right? You saw the
Was very
incredible
painful,
change that's happening.
incredible pain.
Pain in your body from sitting still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're hardcore. I just want to say for people who've done those Vipassana retreats with the and in the Goenka system, they're beautiful, amazing retreats, but they're heavy duty and there are ways to learn that technique that are not as like intense and as intensely painful, just to say. But
But it's interesting. Dan talks about that as well in his book about children and naming emotions. And I thought that was super. I've just ordered the book because I'm an expectant parent, actually.
oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So I want to get in there early, because all that trauma that everyone seems to need so much therapy for, and ayahuasca and all these things, if they just name it at that young age, once it happens, with all the right from a young age all the way up to sexual maturity, those strange emotions we get, it just naming it stops it being an issue. No,
Um, maybe a little bit oversimplified because because as
that's
a
my it's
parent,
my job. I am.
right?
I got to get this down into 3 minutes.
That's right, you gotta create a song from this. Okay. So just to say briefly, like, I have a daughter, she's 12, and I'm a mindfulness teacher, right? I've done my absolute best to teach my daughter how to be aware that this is just an emotion arising, and, myself,
Mhm.
especially when she was littler, and she holding the emotion with my compassion and my awareness when she couldn't hold it herself and she couldn't name it, and she's great, like, she has a lot of skills, but, oh my gosh, she still is a totally normal kid who's caught up in
So
emotions,
so
and
no
and
major.
I don't think I've created, like, some kind of bodhisattva or some, like, magical enlightened child, not at all. She's phenomenal. She's the best thing in my life, and she's just a normal kid, and she's articulate about her emotions, I'd say that, and she's knows meditation, but she more likes to make fun of it than to do it, and, um, and then she also what I was gonna say, though, to you is I started well, not really, but I was thinking I should start
You're
a
giving me a
therapy.
reality check. Yeah.
Like, I have a jar for her therapy, so she's gonna
Okay.
need it. I've been putting quarters and pennies and dollars into her for the last 12 years.
Oh God. Oh,
No, nobody escapes this stuff, but,
okay. Oh,
it's okay.
I'll complain someone else then. Not bad parenting. Society. Look at society, how it's
Look
spread.
at society, genetics, intergenerational trauma, there's all this
Your
stuff.
computer games,
The
telephones,
phone,
TikTok.
game,
How do you deal
TikTok.
with TikTok? I mean, that sort of attention span of,
Yeah, I don't let her do it, that's how I
uh,
deal with it, but that will be coming up, yeah, we talk a lot, we make transparent, we talk a lot about it, we look at what other kids are doing and how it's affecting their behavior, and, of course, she's
yeah,
completely interested in it because all the kids are doing it, you know?
yeah.
So yeah, I'll have more wisdom on that in a couple of years, but not right
There's
now.
a book in it.
Right.
If you can solve it, then you've got a lot of
I
big.
don't know about that. It's
That's a
so
#1 New York Times bestseller. How I
how I
succeeded.
I solved my child's addiction to TikTok. Oh boy. Yeah.
Mm. But is it going back to that success in everything? It is it that concentration is the key? Because I really want to succeed in my concentration. I don't want my mind to drift. So I do the meditation practices just to train that, but I want it in everything I'm doing. If I can concentrate for longer on a song, it's going to be better. If I can concentrate in a conversation like you, if my mind's not drifting, or I'm not too much trying to think of the next question, then I'm more in tune. It's going to be better. Is it all about concentration? Is this what I'm asking?
Um, Concentration is significant and important for having sustained awareness, but awareness can happen at any moment, even without concentration. So, when you're right, like in order to um, function at sort of like, the level that you want to be functioning at, you need to have a certain aspect of concentration. And some of us, it's interesting because some people actually have a lot more than other people. It's just how they come into this world essentially. And there are a lot of people with ADHD who have very little concentration skills or they have hyper concentration, but they sometimes hyper focus on the wrong thing, right? Which is part of the problem with ADHD. But the good news is that it can be trained, so whether you have a little or a lot, you can train it in your favor. And the other thing is that the role of interest is really important here because if you're reading a book that is super interesting, it's easy to concentrate. If you're reading
Yeah.
something really boring, it's hard to concentrate. So how do we follow and trust our interests and learn to like harness the concentration that we have there and even teach ourselves from that how to bring it into things where they're less that are less interesting to us. And it's not and I think basically that's just sort of like a way of thinking about how attention can work and how it can work better. But mindfulness practice is building concentration. And so even though it is hard when you do it, and I don't know how frequently you meditate or whatever, but I don't want to out you in the middle of all your fans and
I have it every hour.
of course, of course. Um, but let's say you do it daily or a few times a week or whatever, that builds the concentration. And you've probably experienced that when you're doing it consistently and regularly, it feels like it's easier to concentrate.
Mm,
Right? And so it's just like any skill. If you're learning to play the piano and you only practice once a week, you're not gonna go very far, but if you practice on a regular basis, you're gonna get much better. So concentration in mindfulness terms, it's this gathering and collecting of the mind, right? It's like taking what is diffuse and bringing it together in a kind of focus, right? In a focus. And the analogy is often like, if when you were I don't know if you ever did this when you were a kid, but we used to take a magnifying glass and put it over newspaper, and then the sun would go through it and it would burn the newspapers. So typically the sun's rays are very diffused, but when it goes through that magnifying glass, they become very powerful. So that's the magic of concentration, that when you keep coming back to something, concentration in meditation is developed through a focus. So you keep coming back to your breathing. So in the Goenka technique, it's the breath at the nose, but other people, it's the breath at the abdomen. I mean, there's many different meditation techniques. And you stay with it, your attention wanders, you bring it back. It wanders again, you bring it back, and you just keep doing it. And that's how you build up essentially a muscle. It's not really a muscle, but you're strengthening the neural pathways, right? You're deepening those grooves in your mind, in your brain. Um, so and the most important thing of all of this is that not to be down on yourself if you're having a bad day. When you sit to meditate and, okay, bringing it back to the present moment, I'm noticing my breathing, and all I can think about is, the chocolate that I can't wait to eat in a few minutes. No, come back, just come back. It gets better and easier over time, like any skill.
mm.
So then once you have more concentration, it is going to help you in life. And that's what a lot of the research shows. That's what my students report. Oh, I'm able to focus a little bit better. Or I notice when my attention has gone away,
Mm.
and then I bring it back in the moment when I need it. And that's actually even more important because we don't have to, oftentimes we don't even know that we're not paying attention, right? Our minds are everywhere. And suddenly, oh, right, were you talking to me? But that skill set of being able to realize the attention has wandered and come back to the present moment, especially also when you're having a hard time, like you're feeling really anxious and you're just caught in those thoughts. It's like you're on a train and your attention is just gone off on that train down the track a million miles away. And suddenly you realize, oh, I got on that train. And then you get off the train by taking a breath, feeling your feet on the ground, noticing something that's happening in this present moment. And breath works great, feet work great. There are different things we can do. We're off the train. And as we practice over time, we learn to stay at the platform and not get on the train in the first place. And that's sort of one of the promises. That's going back to what you were talking about, the kind of witnessing. Like you just watch that train go by, but you don't need to get on. in the beginning, we're getting on and on and then off. Sometimes when we start to learn to meditate, usually we're just on it. We start to get off. And one day we go, oh, there's a train just went, but I'm not got bought into that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when I sometimes I have an issue with maybe my girlfriend, for example, just pick someone at random. And
Okay.
and,
Never with your girlfriend. Never,
no,
of
no,
course not.
obviously not, no.
Mhm.
But, I walk up into the situation and I've set my attention before that I'm not going to s to do something which is not say some things or talk about something which might trigger something. And then in the moment, I do it, but I it's like training a dog, isn't it? You don't train your dog in the middle of the highway or in the middle of the city center. You do these daily practices in the quiet training time so that when you are in a stressful situation, that you have the presence of mind, that you're in the habit of going to the breath or going to the abdomen or just saying, getting into the moment, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So we train for when we need it. And sometimes it could be just the recognition I'm about to say something I regret. And we just pause and we go, okay, not going to go there. And
Okay.
that's
Yeah. Many
mindfulness.
people. Yeah.
So, yeah, mindfulness can be used informally throughout the day when we need it, when we want it, to help us with our activities. It does make things a little less boring, or um, in like rote activities. Like next time when you're in, you said it was gardening or something, try practicing mindfulness as you do it and see what happens. See how that it compares to listening to a podcast. Which do you
Yeah.
like? Oh, maybe podcast wins. I don't know, but maybe that mindfulness really gave you a sense of connection to the earth and your body, and you really took in all the smells and the scents and the feel and of the dirt. And there's a lot to learn.
I
Yeah.
think it's it like. So it's how you're going in the day. If you start in a good way, then you go to the chamomile in the morning instead of a cup of coffee, and then it's easier to do the gardening without a podcast. But if you're already in a jittery state, you keep down that road or hold the whole day, no?
Yeah, we definitely can set ourselves up for for more distraction, or we can set ourselves up for more connection. But the main thing is it's okay.
Mm.
Like not to it's not a problem that we're distracted. I mean, like those guys in Silicon Valley are doing everything they possibly can to distract you, and they have a lot of money behind it.
Mm.
And so and then we're all living with those phones, most of us, and we're on it. And of course, there's wonderful things on it, like your podcast, like the meditations, like, right? There are all these great things. But the basic premise behind those things is to keep you on it so you pay money for XYZ. So that being said, give yourself a break. Set conditions up in your life to support the life that you want to have. Like, what do I want my life to do? I want to feel all frazzled and busy and anxious
No,
all
but
day? Or do I want to feel spacious, relaxed, have a sense like I took care of myself? Do I want to feel more loving? Do I want to feel like I'm helping others and more compassion? Like, what do I have to put into my life that helps me do that? Helps me live the life I want to live? And when I get caught in the habits and patterns that society is absolutely pushing, that the technology companies are pushing, that all of this intensity, we just forgive ourselves. Like this is one of the core teachings of mindfulness is self-compassion. Like, okay, sweetheart, you made a mistake. It's all right. It's not the worst thing in the world. We'll try again. We'll just start again. And I think that's one of the big things I had to learn for myself as a practitioner. I was very hardcore when I started meditating. I was like, I'm going to practice 18 hours a day and not sleep and meditate as hard as I could. I think you probably saw with some of my story. I lived as a Buddhist nun for a year in a monastery, and I was like hardcore. So I was just like, practice really, really hard. And I would do things like sleep sitting up, hoping that, I would wake up from it into a meditative state. And I was trying to eat less, and I was doing all this like rigorous stuff so that I could meditate better and maybe even get enlightened. Even, there was all this like ideology around that in the monastery. And, um, and I would say that the biggest thing that I learned was how to be kind to myself. Like that trajectory landed me in a really hard place with a huge amount of shame and self-blame, and I'm failing and I can't do this and I've failed. Like that's it. But when I changed the lens to a more loving, like I'm doing the best I can, and the meditation is an act of love. It's not an act of like self-abnegation or like you'll be better if you do this. Like it was always like I didn't realize this at the time. I mean, I was younger and, whatever, there was a lot of conditioning, but I thought if I could meditate well enough, then in the end, I would turn into something like Eckhart Tolle and I would not be me. And then I would be like this very loving person who would help the whole world or whatever. I had all these stories. I don't
Yeah,
even really
that's on
remember.
the packet. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, so what I had to realize was me as I am was okay. Like this person is completely worthy, and I don't have to be some special meditator or whatever to love myself. Like so the practice took me down this road to self-understanding, and it took me I went through a lot of pain and suffering to get there, but when I came out the other side, I realized that oh, just the like self-compassion, self-love, all of that is really absolutely core to really to human survival, to my well-being, to all of our well-being. So that's I think I'm just saying this because because it's so easy for us to lay trips on ourselves. I have to lead my life in a certain way. I have to be perfect. I have to always be drinking chamomile tea instead of coffee. I have to never listen to my podcast. I have to know that. But we're human. We're absolutely human. And to give ourselves a lot of care and forgiveness for just being who we are.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, you've gone through all that pain, and so you can be such a good teacher though, because you have this empathy with people coming to you. You know.
I definitely can relate to the students and feel like I'm in a different place now. And of course, it's many years later. But
One of the things I learned from your work was this, because Dan has this wheel of awareness, but you
Mhm.
have this spectrum of awareness, and so because I always thought the meditation was focused, on the breath, but you have these other meditations, which and I hope you're going to finish the show with a guided meditation. I've heard you do
Sure,
some beautiful ones,
absolutely. Thanks.
and so you have. There are these not just focusing on the one thing, but focusing on the everything. There's these grades of meditation.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, so what's different than what Dan and I should have a showdown, like the wheel of awareness versus the spectrum of awareness.
Yeah, that could be a comic book.
I know, right? Or like world wrestling, but it's so his is actually a technique, a meditative technique called the wheel of awareness, whereas my spectrum of awareness is more of like a conceptual system just to how to think about meditation. And so his wheel of awareness fits in under it. But for me, what I was interested
Oh,
in
yours is on
were
top.
yes, I won. I think I won. Um, but we could ask him; he'd probably say something different. Anyway, what I what meditation what so I did a lot of different types of meditation and I did a lot of vipassana, but not Goenka style, but with my teachers in Burma and Thai teachers in the US and so forth. So I practiced that for many years. And then I started practicing another type of meditative practice called, which is more like an open awareness, Dzogchen practice, a non-dual practice influenced by Hindu Advaita Vedanta, right? So after doing, 20 years of different types of meditation, I sort of looked back and said, "Wait a minute. How do they all fit together?" Like, it's not like one is better than the other, they're not. It's just they're all different. So but maybe when we look at them, they can fit together in some way. And so out of that was the inspiration for the spectrum of awareness. And keep in mind that this is just awareness-based practices because there's tons of other types of meditation like guided visualizations and healing meditations and walking a labyrinth. And, I mean, there's endless meditations. This is just around awareness type meditations. So, what I saw was that there was some meditation that's very focused. And that would be like what we were talking about earlier. You notice your breathing, your attention wanders, you bring it back to your breathing. And then but then our attention can expand and we can start to do other things like notice and investigate our emotions, like what's happening in my body sensations, helping us work with physical pain and difficult emotions. And then as awareness begins to expand even more and you move along the spectrum, there's practices where you just open. And this is kind of like Dan's, well, I don't want to get too complicated to map what Dan's doing onto this, but I'm just saying the way he takes you through those different domains, right? When your awareness opens, you go through different domains, and it's really interesting. And you don't have to have a focus. And then the furthest out is what I call natural awareness. And natural awareness is that recognition of when we rest our attention, rest in our awareness itself. So there's a spacious, open, relaxed sense that awareness is happening on its own. And we can even begin to investigate the nature of awareness itself. So it's like it's different, but all of it is mindfulness. All of it is what we can do with our attention. And the simplest way for just if all this is sounding a little confusing, but is just to say, you think of a camera, like a camera can take a picture with a telephoto lens, and it's very precise and very close in, right? And then a camera can take an ordinary picture, just person in front of me. And then you can also take a panoramic lens photo. And it's not like one type is better than the other. They just have different purposes, right? And we would use them for different reasons. And it's the same with awareness meditations. Sometimes if our mind is really, really like spaced out, thinking about a million things, we're going to want to do something that's really focusing it. If we're caught in our emotions, we might want to do something that investigates our emotions. If we're feeling really stable, maybe we're sitting out in nature and we just feel a sense of peace, let's meditate in a wide open, spacious way. And we can move back and forth among them. Oh,
Okay, so that's on it's a practical. And you talk about it in your book, the Little Book of Being.
yes, exactly. I lay it out in the Little Book of Being. And then I have an audio course called Glimpses of Being connected to it.
Okay, well, maybe that's a great time to just jump into a. If you wouldn't mind guiding us in a meditation, I know I'd love it.
Okay, absolutely. So here's your question. What kind of meditation would you like?
Oh well, I guess somewhere in the middle.
Well, what I'll do, you know what I'll do? I'll do a little bit of both or a little bit of among it so you can play with different things and your
Okay.
audience can do it. And how much time do you want to give me?
Oh, however long you need. Yeah, it's podcast land, not radio land. So
So we can do whatever. I don't want everybody to fall asleep and wake up and go, "Oh, what happened?" Um, okay. So wherever you are, and unless you're driving, just be really careful, don't close your eyes, but just find a comfortable position that you can be in for the next amount of time, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. And if your back is upright, if that's accessible to you, that's great. If not, it's okay. Hands resting wherever they're comfortable and eyes closed if that's possible. But also, you may not want to close your eyes, in which case, leave them open, but just have them looking downward. You don't have to close your eyes to meditate. And let's begin by taking a few deep breaths. And as you take these deep breaths, allowing yourself to soften, invite in the possibility of relaxation and ease. Just notice how you're doing as we start the meditation. Are you feeling curious, tired, comfortable, uncomfortable? Like what's happening as we start the meditation? Letting whatever is here be here. And now turn your attention to your breath in your body. You might notice the rising and falling of your abdomen, or the expansion and contraction of your chest. Just a natural breath. You don't have to lengthen it or shorten it. In and out through your nose. And you might notice the air moving through your nostrils, tingling, coolness, warmth. So find something to focus on. Your breath in your abdomen, chest, or nose. And if that doesn't feel possible for you, you can listen to the sounds around you as they come and go, sound after sound. Just listening. So finding something to focus on, breath or sounds, and see if you can notice moment after moment, breath after breath, or sound after sound. One breath ends, the next breath begins. As we do this, what tends to happen is we start to think about things. Our attention wanders, get lost in thoughts, planning, remembering, imagining. If this happens, you're not doing anything wrong. It's normal. When you notice your attention has wandered, you make a soft note or label in your mind. You can just say thinking or wandering, and then redirect your attention back to the focus. So we'll just start here for a minute or two with this basic focused awareness, just to see what the foundations of mindfulness are like. Like, this is where we start. So we'll give it a try. I won't have too much silence, maybe like a minute or so. Let's see what happens as you do that. So our attention here is pretty narrow, like the telephoto lens on a camera. And then we're going to open the lens up a little bit. And so just to notice what's happening for me in my body, for instance. Are there any obvious physical sensations? Heaviness, lightness, warmth, coolness, tingling, discomfort, comfort. Allowing whatever's here to be here, but just being curious. What's happening in my body? Still making sure to breathe. You might even find yourself wanting to go back to the breathing, which is fine. Stay with the breath and then notice what's happening in my body a little bit. If it feels tense, see if you can soften, release. And also open your attention to notice what am I feeling at this moment emotionally, if anything? Maybe I'm a little anxious or frustrated or joyful or sad. Can I feel that inside my body, or is it just a thought? Just to notice, making space for whatever you find, breathing, softening. See if you can bring a little kindness to yourself for whatever is here, in whatever way makes sense to you. What you're feeling, what your body is feeling is absolutely okay. And now let's expand from within our body to around our body. You can now, if you turn your attention to sounds, all of us. Wide open attention to sounds. The sounds are coming and going. What's the furthest away sound you can hear? And see if you can just relax here. And this is where we've moved from into the territory, kind of the panoramic lens. Or just invite you to not worry so much about technique. You can always go back to your breathing if you want. But I invite you to rest in a sense of being, rest as you are. Our mind is open, vast, like the sky. And everything that's happening is just like clouds passing by. We don't need to get caught or entangled in these clouds. Or we don't have to get on the train. Just let the trains go by, let the clouds go by. And see if you can connect to this fundamental well-being that's present there under the clouds. It's always there. Rest, soften, just be. Open, spacious, vast like the sky. And as we bring this meditation to a close, check in one last time and notice how you're doing, how you're feeling. Seeing maybe what part of the meditation you most responded to, you liked the best, you're most curious to know more about. And we'll end with one last offering of kindness to ourselves, whatever way makes sense. May I be safe, protected, peaceful. May I be at ease. When you're ready, you can open your eyes or end the meditation.
Oh, I'm in no condition to do an interview now.
That's all right. We can stop.
Oh, oh, that was fantastic. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
was really gone there.
Hmm.
Well, you have a very relaxing voice.
Well, that's what I do professionally. I relax people.
Wow. So these guided meditations they're available on people can listen to them online or they can download them or
Yeah. So we have a lot of I have a lot of meditations online. Some connected to my center, the UCLA Mindful Awareness Research Center. We have an app called UCLA Mindful, and I put a new mindful meditation up every week. There's usually a new one up. If it's not me, it's one of the teachers at our center. And then there's I'm also on a number of different apps. So if you're interested in the spectrum of awareness, I have some of that on Sam Harris's app, Waking Up. I have a lot on 10% Happier. Those are the main ones that I'm connected to. And then our center at UCLA offers all sorts of classes and programs. So if people want to go more in more deeply to mindfulness, we offer something called Mindful Awareness Practices, which is a 6-week course where you learn the foundations of mindfulness. And there's a lot there to learn, all the nuances, and how do we bring it into daily life and getting a practice started, and how do we use it with difficult emotions and with physical pain and in our relationships? So there's a lot to learn in that class, and it's offered all the time at our center. And we've researched it about 15 different times. So we have a lot of evidence base behind it too.
Wow, wonderful. Yeah, I felt so much tension in my body. I breathe too. I notice I breathe a lot much lower when I put my presence in my body. I tend to
Mm.
breathe too high, and I carry a lot of tension in my abdomen. I really felt butting up against it. I can feel the tension. When I put my mind there, I feel the tension, and it doesn't dissolve. It stays there.
Mm. So what did you do when that happened when you were meditating?
I just felt the tension. It really, I didn't.
Yeah. There's
uh,
nothing you
sh-
have to do.
Should I
Nothing you have to do.
send love there, direct Wi-Fi? Or,
I mean, if you feel like maybe it's connected to an emotion, like maybe you're feeling sad or you're anxious or you're something, you're tense, you could bring a little bit of loving kindness. Or you could just be like, oh, there's tension here. How interesting. Wow, my body's tense. And oftentimes, just in the act of noticing that there's something going on, that there's a relaxation and softening that happens automatically. Or our capacity to hold it gets bigger. It's like, "Oh, I can be present even in the midst of tension in my body. There's nothing wrong with it." And sure, it'd be wonderful if we could all breathe deeply from the bottom of our belly all the time, but that's not what really happens. People do all different things. So,
I fall into the trap sometimes of forcing that, thinking I should have better posture and, forcing it and sitting up. And then that kind of builds more tension, I think.
probably, yeah, yeah. So, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely need to do more of that though. I tend to practice more like yogic practices, pranayama,
Mhm.
mantra, and I do sit in the silence afterwards, but I think I should do some more of these sessions where there is no goal, there is just this awareness and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's balance, right? So if you're benefiting from the mantra and the pranayama and you're really enjoying it, keep going. And maybe it sounds like it's leading to a little tension. So doing a more restful, open awareness or a more practice that invites acceptance and kindness, it might be great. And you can do all of them.
Mm.
Mm.
Or maybe too goal orientated as well, yeah. Anyway, this is turning to a therapy session.
It wasn't my intention. But yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
well, it's been beautiful. Thank you so much. It's really I'm fully inspired to finish the rest of the song.
Oh, so glad to hear that. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, I realized it's a hose because I was thinking it's a hose through which love flows in that you're just a channel for other people now you're sending out into the world, but maybe there's a little left over for you.
Right, you can add that self-compassion piece because it's both, right? Like, if we don't have the self-compassion, we're not gonna be able to give it to others. And there's a wonderful quote from Bell Hooks, who recently passed away, who, she the feminist theorist, and she would say, "Self-love is the foundation of our loving practice. Without it, our other efforts to love fail." That's like a very powerful, powerful teaching that I mean, if we don't have it, if we're not resourced, if we're depleted, like how do you go out and help the world? How do you serve others? And a lot of people do that. They serve others from a place of depletion, and that doesn't really work. So in the long run, it doesn't work. So how do we fill ourselves up? And from that place, it's like an overflowing we give.
I can't be that beautiful. Thank you, Diana.
So good to meet you. I'm glad I don't have to sing a song or anything on your podcast.
Yeah, if you want to do backing vocals.
Let me know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Great to talk.
Take care. Bye bye.
My validated feelings, my compassion incarnate, all the darkest of the answers, swinging wildly at his fate. Am I doomed to live forever with the free will that I chose? Or am I a hose through which love I'm an accumulation of consciousness, a wave before the sand, an amalgamation of aspects at the limit of the land. I'm growing and collecting where attention goes, and I'm a hose through which love flows. I'm chaos in the making and robust rigidity, desperately adding layers, trying to fashion identity. Refractions of the light, an animal that knows, and I'm a hose through which love flows. I'm a bundle of emotions, each with their own name, pretending individualism, all desperate for a frame. On the wheel of awareness, a whisper dressed in clothes, and I'm a hose through which love flows. Proud to stand up, a prosecutor who'll fall, a politician in the alley answering Mother Nature's call. I'm integrating hemispheres, the poetry and the prose, and I'm a hose through which love flows. Giving narration and the right side reaching out, a problem-solving algorithm wants to know what it's about. I'm the observer and the object, the audience and the show, and I'm